get into the big topic of open source, something that we actually say at Red Hat.
This is so awesome.
We are an open culture that believes in the importance of
What is that process that a developer, or let's say,
as the Kubernetes ecosystem really boomed?
Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. This is the Ask an OpenShift Expert live stream. Normally it would be me and Andrew. Whoa. Oh, sorry. Normally it would be me and Sully, but Sully got pulled into a customer call, so it's just me. You're welcome, and I'm sorry at the same time. We brought the user experience team back on. We've had Peter on a few times, and Joy, I think, was on over the summer. I think we were talking about in the pre-show. But yeah, they've been doing a lot of work with multicluster virtualization. And we're going to show it off. We're gonna do some other stuff with virtualization because it's a really hot topic, and yeah, it's a lot of fun to talk about. So before we get going too much, I'm going to get into the top of mind just because we have a few things to cover. The first is that the call for proposals for Red Hat Summit is it ends on November 12th. So if you want to submit a proposal to speak at Summit, make sure that you get it in by the 12th. I think the selections, they said, go out in December or January, maybe it's January. So then, hopefully you can get your stuff in and you can get yourself, go present at Summit. OpenShift Virtualization 4.20 went GA last week, and so did OpenShift 4.20. So we did the what's new, quietly snuck in the 420 channel, and looks like OpenShift Virtualization also went GA. Our upcoming schedule is going to be next week, November. Right now, we're going to do the what's new in OpenShift 420 for admins, and then the week after, hang on, I think Stefan got kicked out. All right, so next week is going to be the what's new for OpenShift admins for the release of 420, and then on 19 November we have Portworx coming in. And so, yeah, that's going to be a really good stream. Like we've been working with the Portworx team for a while, so they're going to come out and talk about some of the things that they've been working on. Finally, no stream the week of the Thanksgiving, 26th November. Obviously, it's a holiday. That's when all the Americans will be getting fat, dumb, and happy, and celebrating some time off, and hopefully having a nice big turkey meal, which I'll be missing here. And then the last one is on the 3rd of December. We have Christian Stark coming to talk about multi-cluster observability. This is something that's kind of come up from the workload availability talk, where we wanted to use ACM to kind of go through some of the multi-cluster things that we can do. So that's the top of mind in a nutshell, like the nickel tour. Peter, do you want to go ahead and introduce the team?
Yeah, thanks, Johnny. It's good to be back. We always appreciate you having us. So I'm Peter Kreuzer. I'm the OpenShift user experience design team lead. So our team covers all things OpenShift, OpenShift console, which probably many of you use, the various layered services that layer on top of it, including OpenShift virtualization, which is a key focus area for us. We also focus on ACM, which I just want to mention that, Advanced Cluster Manager, which has some relevance to what we're going to talk about today. But yeah, I'm joined here with Joy, Yifat, and Stefan, all from the OpenShift design team. I guess we're going to get into a couple of topics, but maybe I'll just turn it over to you, Joy, if you want to introduce yourself first and pass it off to others.
Sure. Thanks, Peter. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me again. I am Joy, a UX designer. Been here for a while. My focus is on the multi-cluster experience, and I've been leading the UX for ACM for a while as well. Since the birth of the product, and I also do now consult kind of across teams to make sure we have consistent, familiar patterns as products start having multi-cluster level experiences. So that's me, and I'll pass it over to Yifat.
I'm Yifat. I'm the UX designer for a CNV, which is OpenShift Virtualization in its kind of new name, and happy to be here. And pass it on to Stefan.
Hey, so I'm Stefan, and I'm working on OCM's virtualization, specifically on the features like RBAC and cross-cluster live migration.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the stream. I know that Joy, you've been on, and we missed paths because I was moving and stuff like that. I've known Peter for a long time now, but Stefan and it was very nice to meet you. Hopefully we get to meet you. Awesome. And I'm glad that you're here. The OpenShift virtualization has been like a huge topic. Like the work that Sully does, the work that Pete does, and your team, especially in the console, it's pretty awesome. I was actually I deployed 420 yesterday, I think, and I was going in and I was looking and I saw how now ACM's got the and now that I'm trying to say it, I can't remember what it's called.
Fleet virtualization,
yeah,
perhaps.
I'm like, yes, that's nice. It kind of caught me off guard, but like, yeah, it's really nice how like you've got all these little plugins in the dashboard to help kind of centralize and organize your environments, which I think is pretty cool. So, good job is what I'm trying to say.
So I'll take no credit for that, but you are talking to precisely the people that were involved in that change. So that is
happy
the
accident. So awesome. Well, yeah, I don't know how you guys want to kick it off, or
that's actually a decent segue because I think Joy, you were going to start with the fleet virtualization.
That's perfect. I'll show you all what that little toggle Johnny's talking about is if you haven't seen it yet. So I guess like just to mention, like I'm sure like a lot of you like probably know the in cluster like virtualization perspective, and it's really like for that single cluster experience, it's really been a powerhouse. And you know we're all I guess like designers here, like we do the research, we know what we're designing for, and the real challenge is really kind of like when people have a lot more clusters, not just one single cluster, like what happens on the fleet level. So like our persona that we focus on, like the virtualization infrastructure admin or virtualization admin, kind of has had no like fleet level home. They kind of had to act like a cluster admin per se, unless they drill down into the virtualization view. And if they wanted to see kind of across clusters, it would be cluster by cluster, like you had to log in. And then I think previously we talked about how like ACM, you had the ability to kind of see across clusters. And also like we detect, for ACM, we also detect VMs as well. But I think really for this release, we're thinking about like, how do we make a foundational change to make sure this experience is kind of together, like within one single source of truth? And so that's kind of the change that we made there, which I will share my screen. Okay, make sure I got the right window. All right, so hopefully that's a good size. So I think what I wanted to share is like kind of previously, this was what you would be familiar with, in that there is this drop down on kind of the masthead portion, which flips you between OCP, like which is your single cluster view, and then your all clusters view, which would be then ACM. And so what we've done is we removed this and we plopped it over to kind of this perspective switcher here. And the renaming of it, we called it fleet management. So here is the new view. And this is kind of a development cluster, I think so. So here is where you get kind of our new capabilities here. You'll see this, we call it like a perspective switcher, and how we have like dedicated homes for specific personas. So what I just mentioned, like all the capabilities of ACM, kind of the familiar experience for cluster admin, this is still their world. So whatever you expected to see in that all clusters view is now shifted over to this perspective here. And just to be clear, like VMs are still resources on the cluster itself. The user still has like a virtual machine discoverability here. You can search for, something has to go wrong for a demo, but you in general you can search for VMs still here, and you can also access Grafana dashboards from this perspective as well. But I think the main change here that we're introducing is the fleet virtualization perspective, which is kind of the key change here, and hopefully this works. Okay, we show the perspectives, but we don't have any virtual machines.
You already won. Let's go. It's time to hang it up.
I know I should. We'll keep going. But now we're introducing kind of this virtualization perspective, and this is that key change. Like now we're making this kind of the new home base for our virtualization admins. So this is now, as you can see, like there's a lot of things that maybe you've seen in the virtualization view that's not in the fleet virtualization view yet, but this is kind of the start to that top level experience for managing VMs at scale. And we're starting to you being able to create VMs, so the catalog is still there, and then you can also see virtual machines as well. So this is where kind of eventually there's going to be more, VM specific tools and menu items that we're familiar with will appear here.
Yeah, our Hope 9 said, thank you for consolidating the drop-down list. It makes a lot more sense. And thank you for joining our Hope 9. It's good to see you again. So with the fleet virtualization, this is going to be the multi-cluster virtualization view, right? Is that the right way of thinking about it?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. That's pretty dope. So then so when you have all of your clusters there, right, and you have virtual machines, are you going to be able to like migrate machines between the clusters from this interface? Is that part of the goal, or is this more of a like a observability kind of thing?
Yeah, so actually we have that lined up because we have our colleague here, Stefan, that did design for that experience. So you'll see it in a bit. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm jumping ahead. I'm sorry.
No, all good. Great segue. So I guess like this is like one of the examples of that, like this better together story where ACM and kind of like the virtualization team work together to provide this experience. And so I really wanted to like emphasize too that like Yifat, who's on the call today too, is kind of the designer for everything that is going on in here. And I would love to kind of hand it over to her to show us what is like exactly going on in these views. So we have like the catalog, we have the new tree view and kind of some enhanced features in there as well. So I'm going to hand it over to Yifat.
Thanks, Joy. I share my screen. I prepared, it's not me, but we have this presentation set up before, so hopefully no blue screens. So the idea is, as Joy mentioned, to manage the workloads from a multi-cluster level. And I won't get into the details, but just in general, ACM is the engine for all the managed clusters. So we can just send the data metrics to the hub cluster and get it directly from there. So this is the new fleet virtualization perspective. And once you're in it, you can see the tree view that begins with the first entry of showing you all the clusters that you can browse, that you have RBACs to see. Now we have all the VMs below that are connected to the related clusters. And I would like to mention that you need to have ACM 2.15 installed in order to see that. So you can just use the tree to navigate. And once you are in a specific level, you can see the virtual machines summary here. And you can also browse, filter the status and the operating systems. We are planning to add more filters here below. You can also search with the advanced search and get the results in that table below. We also added the option for multiple bulk actions here, so you can perform several bulk actions if you select several VMs here. Once you are in the single VM view, you get to see all the details at the VM level. It's the same as we had for the single VM before. You can configure all the metrics by browsing via these tabs. Configuration is done in the configuration tab, but you can also see metrics, console connections, snapshots, etc. In here. This is the advanced search. So if you're not getting everything that you were expecting to, you can always go to the advanced search where you have more filters, like searching by the cluster level. This is the new addition. Project level, status, OS, memory and CPU, storage class. We're adding more and more. We also added this network section, and of course more plans are to be expected. This is the results page. Once you're done with your search, you can see the cluster information and then a namespace information within their dedicated columns. So you can just understand where you are. And in the create flow, we're also adding these levels so users can decide in which cluster and in which namespace they would like to create their VM in. And I think this is the summary of most of the plans that we're thinking about. And this is really rough mockups, so some UI changes should be expected, but this is the main concept that we plan to deliver.
Awesome. Yeah, and not to like call out another vendor or anything like that, but it has a very nice feel, right? It has a very it's got a very familiar look and feel to other products that are out there. That I think that's where we were kind of lacking before, where we were a little bit more I don't know what the right word is, but like, you know, where it's just kind of lacking on the UI side. But like this actually looks and feels very nice, right? You can parse through your VMs and your environments, and that I like the tree view a lot. That's awesome. And then being able to expand all that, I think this is good. This is really good. So I'm assuming like once everything is like in place, you'll be able to like drag and drop things. Like it'll be a very click experience, right? Clicky user experience.
Yeah, we also have right-click operations added to the tree, so it will be much more convenient and easy for users to do these operations instead of just going back and forth as we had it before for each VM. So yeah. Yeah,
no, this is awesome. This looks great. It really does. Like it looks modern and clean, and it does have it's got I guess to me, it just looks familiar. Like I can look at this and be like, okay, I know where all my stuff is. Where before it was kind of like, maybe it's here. No, hold on, maybe it's here. You know what I mean? So it's got a nice usability feel to it, just from the outside looking in.
Thank you. Forgot to mention, you can also adjust the width of the tree view. So if you just don't want to see it, you can minimize it or maximize it or pull the drawer to the exact width that you wish for.
Nice.
I think what you mentioned about familiar feeling, that's what we were trying to achieve, like to make this really something that you can recognize. There are no patterns that will surprise you. something that if you touch it, it feels like something you touched before.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we are aiming for.
Yeah, because I feel like that's probably. I mean, there's more to it than that, but I think a lot of people, right? Like when you lose the familiarity and everything is brand new, then it's like, okay, I have to learn this whole new thing all over, and so it's like it's kind of daunting, especially if you're not a super nerd. You know what I mean? If it's not something that you do every day where you go out and learn something new, then when you look at the interface, if it looks like there's too much noise or there's not enough and you have to go digging, it's like it's too hard. I just want it to work, and I think that it looks very familiar. Like just the way it's the tree layout is awesome. You know, you can go like, hey, what's my environment? What's my cluster? What's my server? Blah blah blah, and then I think that's gonna be a hit. Like that's really nice. And I like. So is that what we're doing? Are we labeling everything multi-cluster as like fleet? So it's gonna be like fleet whatever, fleet vert, fleet multi-cluster.
Yes.
That is kind of the word going forward, but also like if anyone has like any feedback on that too, we will gladly take it.
Names are so hard. Like
that was what we landed on, but I will take feedback. Like we will gladly take any.
No, I think fleet makes sense, right? And I think when you look at like what ACM's trying to do, and you look at any multi-cluster, whatever, right? We're trying to bubble things in. You're trying to manage a fleet of whatever X, Y, and Z, right? Clusters, VMs, pods, whatever. So fleet makes total sense to me. Yeah, that's awesome.
I guess like just to mention as well, like our goal is not to kind of like add perspectives all the time, or like that perspective switcher will not have like 100 things in it. And the goal is kind of for it to be like persona based. So like if we're looking at like for this specific persona, like the virtualization administrator, we know that it exists and we want to provide them like the home base for things. And our goal too is like if we don't want them to be switching across like the perspectives a lot, like if they're trying to do one task, like it should be done within one perspective. But if they're switching between like the core platforms view, or like the OpenShift container platform view, and ACM and virtualization, then we kind of have a problem there in that it's added friction. So I think we're really trying to balance that and also giving people their own space.
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? Especially when you think about what you guys have done with the user console in general, getting rid of the developer context and just sticking with the administrator, right? That when you have a context for everything, you end up go right back to that anyways, right? So you don't want to go back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think having the ability to it looks like you can move between, right? If I'm in multi-cluster fleet management and I'm searching for a VM, I clicked on the VM, it looks like it'll probably kick me over to the fleet vert context, right? Okay. Yeah, so being able to navigate at will, basically, I think is going to be really nice.
Yeah, and we touched on it earlier, but I guess like in the vein of familiarity and all that, certainly what we've been trying to do is focus on talking to users of existing virtualization products to understand like what their expectations are, and that's what sort of got us to this point of trying to create these type of interfaces. OpenShift console, I mean, has long been an interface that it sort of surfaces Kubernetes concepts, helps you manage your cluster, get in there and manage those resources. But through our research, we understand that virtualization users are expecting more of like a use case driven UI. So that's kind of why we're focusing on it in this way. So I just want to mention that as well.
Yeah, no, it looks nice. I really like the fleet part of it. Like jumping around is annoying, especially when you're doing demos and you're trying to do stuff, and then it's like, okay, well, hold on, I got to go back to this one spot. But being able to just like click back or whatever, you know what I mean? Like being able to easily navigate instead of having to go and refind everything and re-index. I think that's what's from my point of view. That's where I get annoyed with any UIs, and when I'm jumping around, then I have to go back and find where I was at, and then especially if I'm doing like multiple things in different windows. One thing that just popped in my mind, like the little 9-box drop down. Is there a way to like? I know you can add links in that for applications and stuff like that. Like, is there a way to like maybe you have a manager VM or something like, I don't know, something crazy, something that you want to persist, like that you could easily dump into that 9-box without having to go and get like this, 8-page freaking base64 encoded URL.
So you're talking about like one particular VM that's on that cluster that you want to get back to its details page regularly?
VM is probably bad. like a bad point, but I'm just saying like inside the console you've got like the 9-box drop down, and we generally use it for like if we have like OpenShift GitOps, we'll add a shortcut to that. Any of our core operators that we want like our users to hit like a UI. So I'm just thinking like, is there a way that, hey, I've just built this thing, I've built this VM, I've built something, and I want to be able to get back to it easily, that maybe you just plug it into the, drag it up there and it just, now you've got a link to it. I don't know.
It's a good idea. I think
It doesn't have to be.
we came back with 4.19. We were on this live stream a couple months ago, and we talked about there's now this favoriting mechanism, which for certain pages within OpenShift console, you can now favorite them. So if it's like a particular resource, I believe you can favorite it, and then it'll surface in your favorited items. So that is one way you can like save something or call attention to it.
Gotcha.
You can favor a VM, for example, and also a project in the project drop down. Just get this little star added next to it.
Ah. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm doing this right now. So
we can tell.
The hamster spinning full speed. Oh, that's cool. Okay, I'm just gonna share my screen so everybody else can see it.
I don't know. I want to see what you're seeing.
Maybe. All right. So what I did is I had like this. This was blank before, and this is what I was talking about, Peter. Like where you could add it. If you wanted to add something up here, you could add something. Like we add like links to like our Argos and Vault and stuff like that. I was just thinking, I was like, is it like once you get it, can you just like drag it up here? Or is there like an easier way to do it? Because right now you have to encode the URL for the app and then dump it in there. It's like it's not hard. It's just steps.
It's good feedback. Yeah.
But then for everybody else, if you want to add it to the favorites, you just click on your project and then click on the start. It's like it's actually really silly how easy it is. That's awesome.
That's it.
That is it. That's awesome.
And I think that works for most any resource. So any resource that you're viewing in the console, if it's something that you're regularly going back to, you can just do exactly what Jonny did there and then get easy access to it.
Yeah, there you go. Did it live. Live demos. It worked. You guys did awesome.
Perfect. Well, yeah, I think, maybe Stefan, if you wanted to take away.
Yeah. So if we want to start talking about the cross-cluster live migration, which would be a feature that would potentially live in the fleet management, where you can do it from your fleet virtualization view, from a single pane of glass. The ability to move VMs from one place to another, that's what we heard. The feedback is people want to do it from cluster to cluster, from project to project. That all should be available. And so the use cases that we heard more or less is like for resource balancing, for redistributing VMs for resources, evacuating clusters and namespaces, and to promoting higher level development types to some other ones. And so based on this feedback that we got from customers, we jumped into like working on the feature. And I'll share a demo with you that will allow us to see some of the parts of the cross-cluster live migration. I don't think it's available yet, maybe in a tech preview, not GA possibly. So what you'll be seeing is work in progress demo that we're collecting feedback on. So it's always good to hear from actual users what it should look like, how it should work, what do you want to use it for, make your life easier, so you don't need to spend your precious time doing that stuff. So this is the UI that I'll be presenting. It's like, again, a disclaimer, a big disclaimer, this is work in progress. It's using some of the components that we already use in the fleet virtualization and fleet management and some other tweaks. So in this case, let's say I'm a virtualization admin and I want to move a specific VMs that are sitting on a namespace, let's say core billing. All of these VMs in this project, I want to move them to a different one. So that's the meat and potatoes of the cross-cluster live migration. So I could potentially go VM by VM, but I want to save some time. So I would select all of them, navigate to Actions, and click to migrate across clusters. That would allow me to move the VMs from the destination, the source destination, to the target destination. But as you might know, you can't live migrate the VMs that are, for example, paused or stopped. So that's why we would stop the user and tell them in this phase that, hey, you're not able to move all of them. You can only move the ones that are running in this time, space and time. And so we stop the user and they can go back and start all of the VMs. Or ideally, if we were in ideal space, maybe we could create separate migration plans for like a code migration and other ones. So you can just move them seamlessly. And that would be the next step that we would be aiming for. But in this demo, I'll only go with the live running ones. And I would open a wizard where in the first step, I can create sort of like a migration plan, name it in a specific way, and give it some kind of reason. If I want to, let's say, learn from a colleague, why did he move all of my VMs from my precious project to another one? Why can't I see stuff? And so we would auto-generate a name, because I don't think that's the most important part of this. And the migration reason would be optional too. Maybe you want to keep it a mystery. And in the next step, as you might know, you would have a source and a target. In this case, again, we started the flow from the VM and a specific project. So that would be pre-selected. And then a target is something that we need to specify. So you can search by a cluster name, or you can just like pick anything you want. And from the selecting projects, you can select the existing targets, even the ones that are not existing. So you can create a project on during the whole process. But let's say I want to move it to something else, like a different cluster, where I would move it here to data analytics. This is also a dummy data, so take it with a grain of salt. And now I have my source and target filled. So I can go to a next step where we would check if your migration readiness is ready. And we're checking against network mapping, storage mapping, compute compatibility, version compatibility between the cluster and the virtualization version that you're running on those clusters, because that might be different, and resource capacity. If you're actually able to move the VMs to the target, is there enough space? And in this case, we would suggest the best network, or like the network that we can connect it to. Again, dummy data, that's why it says network one, but ideally we would choose the same name networks, or like the same networks on the source and target. And you can potentially edit it, so that should be fine if you want to change it. And then in the next step, you have a review, where you have a review of all of the VMs that you've selected, name, the reason that you've selected, your placement, where is it coming from, where is it going to, and if you're ready. Disclaimer that the migration will be running in the group of 5, but you can change this in the settings to move it faster. So I would click migrate now, the process starts, and I can see in the table the VMs are migrating. Again, this is demo, dummy data, but you would see that it's in the process. You can see the VMs are migrated. You can see the plans details. So you have some kind of record of what you have did, and you can cancel the migration and revert the changes. So once it's...
I'm sorry. Quick question on the canceling. So I'm assuming as long as it hasn't started, it'll just cancel it, right? It'll just kill the migration where it's at, versus like does it just ignore the cancel if you do it midstream? I'm sure that's what it does. I'm just curious though.
So you're saying that you would expect it to midstream cancel and revert, or I'm not sure if I followed the question.
Well, yeah. So I'm just asking like what it does. So like if you started a migration and you hit cancel after it's already started, and say a VM's already on its way over to another cluster, does it finish? I'm assuming it just finishes that whatever migrations it started and then stops, right? Or does it actually, like, does it kill -9 migrate?
So that's one of the things that I didn't yet figure out fully through the feedback that I got. But there was an interesting case of, for example, if I'm migrating like 100 VMs, right? Maybe that's a big number that I would put in the plan. But if I stopped it and canceled it at 80%, I don't know if I would want to lose all of that progress that I did while migrating, right? So that's maybe something to figure out, but that's a good feedback for sure. But that's pretty much it. Your VMs are migrated and you have your little record of what you did that we would keep in migration plans. You can revisit it any times, and then VMs would be successfully migrated.
Yeah, that's awesome. We got a question from Khalil. He's asking, can you configure pre and post hooks for migration?
That's what would be considered pre and post hooks? Like post hook.
Go ahead.
So post hook like a notification or something, and pre hook would be letting people know that this is going to happen, or is that something else?
Yeah. Hey, Khalil, if you're listening, if you can expand on what you mean by the pre and post hooks, that'd be awesome. And then we'll try and get that answered. Yeah, I can't think of a pre-hook thing because it looks like you do some of that with the checks that you do, like making sure that the networking and storage and stuff like that's compatible, which is a nice touch because if you've ever done an OpenShift install or anything like that and it just breaks and you're like, oh my God, it's because I don't have enough whatever. It's annoying. So yeah, that's really cool. But yeah, I would say like a post hook would be like some type of automation after it's done. Maybe it checks into a CMDB or some updates the CMDB. I don't know. I'm just kind of guessing.
That would be cool touch. We heard about feedback that someone might want to maybe, like, let's say in the AI era, right, and ACM being a powerful tool, that we would suggest you an ideal cluster and place for your target for your projects, because that might be an interesting case of like finding a cluster that has enough amount of space for these VMs.
Yeah.
If I can say for the pre-hook, post-hook, so I don't know if we've said it, but this feature is using Migration Toolkit for virtualization behind the scenes, which I know MTV, I'll call it, does have pre-hook and post-hook capabilities on their migration plans. So I can't say definitively, but I believe, Stefan, this is creating a migration plan to execute this feature, isn't it?
That's that I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. My assumption is it is, and so my assumption also is that you would be able to add pre and post hooks, but that's two assumptions right there. So I would say don't take that as fact.
Two assumptions make a one fact, or whatever they say. That doesn't work, right?
All right, awesome. Yeah, so that's what he was talking about. And what we can do is we can figure it out. Like we can go and find out what MTV actually does. So so what you're saying, Peter, is if MTV supports it, then this is going to support it. That's the gist, right?
There, and that right there was an assumption. So
okay.
Right. So that would be the cross-cluster live migration. You can move from project to project within the same cluster, or cross-cluster too.
So how do you guys get feedback? Like, do you? I'm assuming customers submit RFEs, people grab you at a bar. Like what's the actual feedback loop like? Because like I've seen like the Jira issues, I see the what's new and the what's next and all that. And so I'm assuming that I guess the customer goes through their sales rep, or do they submit their own Jira issue and then it gets to you?
Stefan, do you want to field that? Otherwise, I take a shot at it.
So the bar option would be the nice alternative, I would say. Drinking a beer and getting the feedback is always nice. But no, I mean, it happens sometimes, during the summit that customers do go to the booth and they express their feelings and their expectations. But I would say there are maybe two main streams that we get feedback from, which are the people within the Red Hat that work with customers, like they directly represent them. So that will be the first one. And then we have UX researchers that allow us to connect with the customers directly. So.
Okay, gotcha. And then like what does that decision process look like? So like, and this is just me I'm just being curious now. Like, say I want to have a fleet virtualization context, right? How does that get to you guys where you're like, yeah, we're going to do that. That's how we should do this. You know what I mean? Like, how much feedback do you have to get? How many different, I'm sure there's not a set number, but is there like what's the, I'm just trying to think, what's the barrier to entry to get something on the table for you guys?
Stefan, do you mind if I jump in here for just one sec?
Go ahead.
I guess like another stream that I have to acknowledge is, so we're the UX team. So we are a part of like a trio of teams that basically focus on these new features. The others being the business unit. So those would be our product managers, and then also the engineering teams. So honestly, Sully, what you alluded to earlier, like a key way that features get prioritized in these products is that customers give feedback to their technical sales or their sales team. Usually the BU will get, the business unit will get involved and intake those features as well and start to prioritize them. They may come to UX and engineering to get feedback on like what's feasible and what else, what else has been requested by customers that we've talked to in those two ways that Stefan just mentioned. And so it's kind of like, we call it our product trio of the three groups, kind of like working together to prioritize the various features that end up in product. There's also RFEs, those get filed and those get triaged through those two teams as well. But I did just want to highlight that stream as well.
No, and that makes sense. I think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to allude to the, I guess I'm just trying to show, like, if you do have an idea that it doesn't have to live and die at your keyboard, right? Like there's ways that you can get your idea into some stream, whatever that stream is. And like it's a real possibility that like your idea could make it into the product, or at least some variation of your idea. That's ultimately what I'm trying to get to, is like,
absolutely,
it's not just some black hole, right?
No, for sure. If you're already working with Red Hatters, either technical sales or anybody already working with your company, I would say talk to them. Otherwise, like, I'm on this call, I'll give my email. You're more than welcome to send feedback our way. But we're more than happy to take this type of feedback and kind of like triage it with all the other requests that we're getting. Because honestly, like a lot of these features that we're including in the multicluster virtualization interface are things that we've heard repeatedly from many customers. And that's essentially how they end up in product. So no, I guess I'd say customer feedback, that is basically the foundation of our team. So we'd love to hear what you have to say. Again, I'll give my email. You're more than welcome to send it my way.
Nice.
But yeah, otherwise talk to the Red Hatters you're already talking to.
Nice. Yeah, and our Hope9 said that you may want to have an option to halt or pause the process should you want to make sure that everything checks out, and with subsequent options to continue, like a continue or resume. So me, I was just like flat out binary, go, no go. And he's basically saying pause it, make sure that your migration is actually happening, and then you can resume it once you've like confirmed, like, hey, like these VMs are actually going, everything's working as expected. So that way you don't do 80% of your fleet and it's dead, and then you're trying to roll back. So
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's good feedback for sure. Well, this is another stream of how we can get feedback. That's nice. Yes.
Yeah, and this is perfect. I mean, honestly, that's why we like joining this live stream. So we appreciate you having us, Jonny. We love getting feedback from you all. If you're also watching a recording of this, please feel free to email me or get in touch with Jonny, and we'll still capture your feedback. So thanks for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Pretty sweet. Well, do we want to jump into our bag or?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. Well, for the RBAC, as you might know, that there is an existing RBAC in OpenShift console, which works. It's a little bit more YAML based. It's a little more complicated from what we learned. And the general idea is that we learned that the customer base, the user base that is using RBAC is more focused on the ClickOps way of doing things. So more of the UI, having a toggle, being able to touch the button and fill the field. And what OpenShift console provides more is also a YAML, where you can create a custom resource that does the thing. But not all of the people know how to operate it. And the learning curve to do that is oftentimes pretty steep. So you need to go through a process of learning something new. And like we mentioned, we want to make the life of our users easier. So that's why in ACM, we took an approach of building the fine-grained access control to be more of a ClickOps way. So you have a UI where you can toggle stuff, you can set up a role for a user, and everything should be fine. And ideally, this would be a central place where you can manage all of your clusters that are registered to ACM through the ACM's RBAC. So the RBAC that you set up and on that high level would trickle down to the managed clusters, to the hub cluster, and would report successfully, right? So it's working. Your users can use it, and they have restricted access, so they can touch what they shouldn't, and they don't see what they shouldn't see. So the prototype that I'll share supports that, and I should mention again and again that this is a work in progress prototype, and that the data that we're using is dummy data. So with that being said, like we were talking about this fleet management perspective, and that would allow us to store the user management navigation, where we would have entries for identities, roles, and identity providers as well. So when we are talking about RBAC, maybe I should circle back a little bit. We're talking about users, then we're talking about roles, and we're talking about the scope of the role assignment that we are trying to do. Meaning, I want Jonny to be a virtualization admin on this specific namespace. I don't want him to touch anything else. I don't trust him. Just kidding. I trust Jonny, but that's the idea, right? So you have an identity, you have a role attached to it that has specific permissions, and you're scoping it out. So the way you could potentially set up RBAC is from those three perspectives. You could go to a cluster, and then within that cluster scope, which you've already pre-selected, let's showcase. Let's say I'm in this cluster set, and I want Jonny to, or any user, not Jonny, I want them to be a specific, I want this user to have specific role, and maybe scope it out a little more, or maybe just at the cluster level. So let's say I have this group that is already pre-filled with users, and I want to give them either whole cluster set role assignment. So this will apply to every resource that belongs to this cluster set, or I can go a little more granular within the cluster set itself, and I can select specific clusters. And if I drill down, maybe even specific projects, right? But in this case, let's say I want to do a whole cluster set, so I can proceed with that. And then in the role selection, you are selecting a specific role that comes with permissions, right? That's the obvious part. So you can either go full cluster set admin or viewer or whatever role you really want. So there are two types of roles: the ones that are pre-packaged that come with the plugin or like with the OpenShift. And then you can also go with a custom one. But in this case, I'll set the cluster set admin. And in my review step, I just have the high-level review of what I selected before. And I now have this group that can do specific things on this cluster set and all of its resources. They are the admins. So that's one path of how someone could do it. Then we were talking about identities, specifically about groups, users, or service accounts. So you can go into the user as well and create a role assignment for a user from this space, where in this case, user is pre-selected, so you're only scoping out what resources you want to select and the role you want to assign to this user. And that's pretty much it. The third way of doing this is obviously from the role, where, like I mentioned, you have the default ones and the custom ones that you created before, or like the ones that you're creating within the OpenShift, which ideally we would have a good flow of how we could do it in the UI itself, which we're working on right now. This is what the create custom role could look like potentially. So what currently exists in OpenShift is only the right side of this, where you're editing the YAML. But on the left side, we're adding sort of a form that would allow you to pick characteristics of your role that you're trying to create and tweak it to your desired expectations. So that would create a role. And if you go into the role, you can here select the user and the scope, and the role assignment should be alive and reporting to the cluster itself that you selected. So that's the demo of the RBAC. It's fairly fast, fairly simple the way I'm showing it. So maybe any questions or any thoughts on this?
So with the identity or the user management, you have the identity providers. Will that just be a list of your already configured identity providers, or would you actually be able to, like, hey, I'm setting up an IDP for, I'm going to set up keycloak here and then propagate that down, right? Where maybe I have a policy or whatever that pushes the keycloak operator and some of the configs, and then it hooks in the OAuth stuff. Is that, or is it more of a, like, here's the things that exist, here's the users that and identities that exist within those providers?
You mean identities that exist on the clusters already, or?
Well, so okay, so it looks like here you can add an identity provider. So it looks like you can actually configure it, and I'm assuming it plugs in the OAuth cluster. Okay, that's pretty awesome. That's freaking awesome. So then, if you create it here, are you able to push it down to your spokes?
Would you expect that to happen?
I think it would be cool if it could happen. So here's the use case that I'm talking about, right? So you're doing like you're focused. Imagine you're doing like you're like a cloud provider or a service provider, right? And you're deploying clusters for your customer. If you build a cluster, you want that cluster. So say you've got like your management cluster and you're spinning up additional clusters for Stefan, Peter, right? Yifat, everybody. You want those clusters to be hooked into your IDP, right? So maybe it's Keycloak, maybe it's GitHub, whatever it is. It'd be nice if you could build that, provision the cluster as it gets checked in, that identity provider gets mapped down to it, or based off the cluster set gets mapped down. And then when the cluster is completely checked into ACM, it's got all of its policies enabled and stuff like that. It's just done. So Hive kind of does something like that. It's like a sync set, I think is what they call it. Like maybe it's like an identity sync set, but it's that same kind of concept where you create a provider at the high level, at the top level, at the root. And then as you build these clusters, with that sync set, it'll actually configure that controller on your spoke cluster.
That would be sweet. Yeah, I mean that's what we would expect there as well. The ACM being the centralized place where you manage this, and then it syncs and it works. Hopefully, doesn't break.
Yeah. I'll tell you, just from a nerd point of view, the RBAC GUI is freaking awesome.
Thank you.
That's pretty awesome, man, because that is such a freaking difficult thing to configure, and especially if you're new or you're not, like, you don't do it all the time, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and so you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. And I think having a UI where you can go through and you can click buttons and kind of see what the output is and then apply it that way, I think that's an awesome feature.
Thank you. Yeah, the idea is to make it easier really to set up, and also not to not let the user make a lot of errors, because making an error in RBAC might cost you some security issues.
Yeah.
So ideally, that would be easy to set up and very understandable and works the way you expect.
So the idea here, though, is that you're on your hub server, your hub cluster. You provision a RBAC, and then you assign it to either a cluster set or the one thing I did see that I would probably maybe do is like emphasize a little bit better, like a cluster set versus a cluster, because I know I don't pay attention, and if I don't pay attention, that means that other people also don't pay attention, and so they're probably going to click the wrong thing. So just putting that out there. But yeah, but the idea is like you create the role, or you take a role that already exists, you assign it, it propagates down, and then automatically, like, the RBAC it's in place. Do you know what that is? It like based off the sync, the operator sync cycle, or is it like almost instant as soon as the policy hits? Like, how does it work?
I don't know how fast that would be, really. But that's a good question to ask engineering, right?
Yeah, we can follow up on that one because I
Mhm.
don't think I know myself either.
All right. Yeah, sorry, and I realize I'm not asking the right people. I'm just asking questions that are popping up, so my bad.
Oh, it's good. It's good. And questions are good. It helps us really understand the full picture of whatever we were working on, and also with help with engineers and product managers, we're able to put together something like this. So also appreciate their work.
Yeah. Yeah, this is awesome.
And just to mention, Jonny, so you said like this RBAC interface, like I'm glad that you appreciate this. I guess I'll just say broadly when we were speaking with like virtualization admins, like what type of pain points do they have today? Two of the main ones that came up were just interacting with RBAC, which is what we're highlighting here, and also networking. So that's another area that we're focusing on.
Yeah.
I'm not going to jump ahead, but I will say that we have plans to come back in a couple months and talk more about networking. But yeah, so thanks for saying that. I guess my point being is like, this is an area that we've heard pretty repeatedly that it could use improvement, which is why we're focusing on it.
Yeah, it's really it's not difficult if you do it enough, right? Like if you've messed with it enough and you understand like, oh, hey, I've got a role binding, I can assign a resource, I can do names, you know what I mean? Like if you understand like where the scope is for each of those tools, it's not a big deal. But if you don't, and you're like, hey, I need to create a VM or I need to do something, and I don't want to give keys to the farm to everybody. I want to actually have a granular role of where they can do certain things, but you don't use OpenShift or you don't use Kubernetes. Like that's probably like, holy crap, what are you asking me to do right now? Like it's where you go into VMware and you go into their console and you can create a role or you can add different RBAC rules and stuff like that. And then now you've got this role. It's very easy to use. It's intuitive. I think that's where you guys are now with the RBAC thing. And that's why like it's awesome. It is so awesome because if you're trying to do it from the shell, you hate your life. It's very difficult. So like, I think that this is going to be, I think it's going to be popular.
It's good to hear. We appreciate it. We appreciate we're doing something right. Hopefully, with your help.
Oh no, you are. Yeah, it's good.
Sweet.
Yeah, awesome. So our Hope 9 made a comment, said for OIC, I don't think that's good for authentication, but perhaps for syncing groups, as your auth should be handled as close to the cluster as possible. So he's saying he thinks that the authentication should be handled closer, like basically at the cluster level instead of at the hub level. But with Hive, it's I think it's called like a identity sync set. I think this is what it's called. It's what the actual resource is called. But it's the same. It's that concept where you have your Hive cluster, your ACM cluster, you provision another cluster, and then it automatically attaches your IDP config to it. So it updates your OAuth with whatever you're doing, and then that way all that's there, and then you can configure group sync if you wanted to. So I think it's just it's an implementation detail, but I think that like, I know if I see it in the UI, I would expect it to be like, oh, okay, that's cool. I can do it from here, and it rolls out, and I can assign which clusters get what. So.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, you would want to have one source of truth that reports, and then ACM just consumes, or maybe at a cluster level, whatever helps better to spread the users where they should really be.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that every config that you do in the UI has a YAML aspect to it, right? Like it dumps out to some CRD that we can actually use if we wanted to do GitOps to deploy it. Okay.
Yeah. We're not forgetting about the core OpenShift users. We are trying to also provide something for them. So
yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
Man, Peter, you guys, man, y'all been killing it this year. It's been a big year for you guys, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm glad that you keep having us back so we can keep sharing these type of things. Yeah. I mean, I can only take a minimal amount of credit here. This is all the work of the folks on this call and the folks that have been on these calls previously. But yeah, I know we have plans to come back. Joy, maybe you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, we would love to bring like more of our team to show this, and I know like in January too. I think you're gonna be seeing us again. Like Yifat and like Anna on our team as well. Like has been working so much in kind of the vert space and capabilities that aren't necessarily like, I guess everything's kind of multi-cluster, but kind of the specifications of networking, like addressing the usability and like, let's say like the topology and kind of clarity and validation on certain configurations. So I think that'll be exciting changes.
Nice. That's awesome. So, and just so you guys know, if there's anything that you're rolling something out and you want us to test before you come on, if you want us to show it off, like there's certain features, whatever, just let us know. And Andrew and I, we'd be happy to spin something up and show it off and complain about it publicly or, celebrate it, whatever.
We love it.
That's ideal. That's perfect. And the other thing I'll mention, we're also very focused on security. So I will say that we have ambitions of coming back probably in March to talk about the advanced cluster security operator that we currently have. We have a design team dedicated to that, and we'd love to share some of the updates that are going on there because there's work on observability and more tightly integrating it with OpenShift. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think the last time we had anybody from ACS was Sean, and I think he was just showing how to use ACS to stop an attack, right? As an attack is coming, or to detect, and mitigate an attack. So yeah, that'd be kind of cool to have some ACS stuff come back out. That'd be cool.
Super. We'll plan on it.
Awesome. Well, I don't know if you guys, is there anything else you want to talk about before we jump out, or?
Last thing that I would say is it's a big thanks to the team and the big three, the engineering PM, everyone who worked on the features. That it's great to collaborate with people, and we would love to hear more from the users.
Yeah, awesome. And you're welcome back anytime. And yeah, so I think what I was trying to get to earlier is that if you have feedback, if you have gripes, complaints, if there's things that piss you off, like you're like, I can't use this because of this, I think that's the kind of feedback that you guys are really looking for too, right? Like it's not just, we don't want to hear about all the rainbows and sunshine, right? We want to hear about the pain points and stuff like that too, right? We want to try and improve the user experience. So if you have that, feel free to email me, or I'm going to put Peter's email in here, maybe if I can learn how to use it.
Feel free to send it my way.
But yeah, or you can email Peter. And so I know Peter from a specific experience where he showed up at a customer with us to get feedback on like what we were doing with the UI, stuff like that. So it's not just, campfire talk. It's actually legitimate feedback that they want, and they actually do stuff with it. So it's a pretty cool experience if you get to go through it and actually work on it with them. So yeah, and it's this year's been awesome. Peter, I'm glad we hooked up earlier in the year and we were able to like figure out how we're gonna do this series, because I've learned a ton, I've seen a ton, and it's pretty awesome seeing the console and the UI evolve. Like it's just getting better and better and better. So I think I was complaining about how like OpenShift 3 it's just miserable, I wouldn't use it at all. And now it's like it's actually like a full blown thing, and it's pretty awesome.
For sure. Yeah, we appreciate your help. And I gotta invoke Sully's name. I know he's not here today, but honestly, we talk with Sully quite a bit week to week. And he gives us amazing insight, amazing feedback. So thank you, Sully.
Yeah, Sully's the man. He is the man. So all right, awesome. Well, again, next week we're gonna do the what's new in 420. There's a potential that we might alternate the topic for another. We're working with another group, but since it's KubeCon, I don't know if they're going to actually join. So it'll most likely be what's new 420 for admins. And then we're going to go into Thanksgiving, or I'm sorry, then we're going to have Portworx, and then Thanksgiving, and then multi-cluster observability with Christian Stark. So going to close out the year with a bunch of good topics, hopefully. And then once we come back from the Christmas break, we're going to just, hopefully we have a better year of consistency on the streams. And yeah, we're able to crush it and get a bunch of people in here and do some awesome stuff. So. Peter, Joy, Yifat, Stefan, thank you very much for joining. Like this has been awesome. You guys are doing awesome work. I'm actually genuinely excited about the UI release because I think the fleet management, I think that view is really solid, and so I'm excited to see where it goes. And yeah, thanks a lot for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See y'all later.